friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be chatting about my thoughts on Paramour by Robin Alvarez. But if you like this kind of video from me, let me know in the comments down below. And as usual, hit like, subscribe, and comment. If you want to see more of these kinds of videos from me, I am trying to reincorporate more reviews back into my channel. If that's something you want to see, also let me know. And let's just kind of hop into the video. I received this arc from the author herself, so thank you very much to Robin Alvarez for letting me review this arc. Hopefully I will still get to continue to review more arcs from you. Let's start off with a synopsis as per usual. Paramour by Robin Alvarez is a YA paranormal romance following Isolde/Sadie, because she's this persona, and her mother, who are banshees. Now these two banshees have been kind of, I want to say, on the run, but they live a very nomadic life. They don't really settle down in one place in particular. They kind of stay in the town that they're in, help out as much as they can, and then move on to the next town. They have a strict set of rules they follow for them to be able to stay in a town for an extended period of time. And then one day, all of these rules are just broken. They are attacked by some paranormal hunters and are left really kind of reeling, and left with Sadie/Isolde really injured and unable to really move. So they end up settling in this random town because in this town it is the only place where Sadie is feeling better. So they settle here in hopes that maybe they'll be able to find out a cure, figure out what's wrong with Sadie. And instead, Sadie finds herself more and more drawn to this young man named Nathan, which she does not have time for, because the reason why she is so ill and so hurt is because they're being hunted down by paranormal hunters. Trigger warnings for this one. I couldn't find too many trigger warnings for this, like to confirm that I got everything. So if I missed anything, let me know and I'll throw them in the description down below. But big trigger warning for this one, obviously there's a lot of violence. I think there's almost like a near-death situation or close to death situation happening there. Moving on to my first thought. As you guys know, I have read a Robin Alvarez book before this. I read When Oceans Rise, which is a Little Mermaid retelling, and I will leave that review linked down below as well for you guys to check out. And I really enjoyed it. I had, I think, my gripes with it, obviously, but for the most part, I really enjoyed the retelling. I enjoyed the plot, I enjoyed the characters. So when I was asked to review Paramour by Robin Alvarez, I was very much sign me up. This is exactly what I'm looking for. No one really uses banshees in that kind of like paranormal sense. It's always almost vampires, witches, werewolves, angels, devils, fairies. It's another big one that's popping up. So I was excited to hear about banshees in a paranormal romance setting, in a YA setting, because they're very underdeveloped and underutilized. I think in the actual translation of banshee, it just means fairy woman. So it's not too far off that they are a fae, but neither here nor there. I also love the idea of paranormal hunters because I think it's a good way to add tension without making the sole focus of the book just be on the romance aspect. So I was really stoked to hear about that and see where that was going for. Moving on to the writing / the writing style. I really enjoyed the writing style. I thought the writing style was really descriptive, enough where I could clearly picture everything but not oversaturated to the point where there was too much being described and I couldn't really like lose myself in it because then I was too focused on the minutia of the descriptions. I also felt like the writing really lent itself to the characters. I felt like it showed a lot of their personalities. It let me really take a peek into their inner thoughts whenever that happened, their inner turmoils, and made the characters feel really individual and fleshed out on their own. Moving on to the world building, I enjoyed little bits of the world building. I think the world building as a whole it's like what I'm gonna say about this book a lot. This book had a lot of good bones, and the world building had a lot of good bones. I can tell Robin Alvarez took a lot of time and a lot of effort into building this world and really thinking of all the aspects of it. And I can tell as well with how everything was spaced out. She tried really hard not to just info dump everything into the first couple chapters. However, I feel like because she sprinkled it so far separate from each other, there was too much sprinkling. Like the butter was spread a little too thin on the toast. That metaphor was going somewhere and I kind of lost it, but it's fine. Just because by the end of the book we were still learning new things about some world building aspects. Like there was a throwaway line about the werewolves and their like ranking system, which I felt like was kind of just like a little like thrown in there for no reason if you weren't going to go anywhere with it. And because everything was so separated in an attempt to probably, I'm not saying I talked to the writer about this, but probably to make it so it wasn't so info dumpy at the very beginning and very heavy, we ended up feeling I felt the world felt a little disjointed, and I kept learning about more and more things in instances. Part of me was just kind of like, maybe we don't need to learn about this. Or not so much that we had to learn about this, but maybe we felt like that we should have learned about these things kind of earlier on in the book, rather than kind of dumping it toward the end, like spreading it out throughout the entire book and leaving me with more questions toward the end of the novel that I feel like shouldn't have happened, and would have rather preferred those random throwaway lines to have been used to set up the next book. Moving on to themes, I feel like the theme is a really big part of the story. Obviously it's a YA novel, so there's got to be like some kind of lesson going on in there. But so the themes of belonging and community are really a huge part of the story. We see Sadie and her mother really be separated from community and really just be isolated figures. They only really have each other to trust on. And you can really see, especially in this book, Sadie grapple with sticking to the rules and sticking to themselves and wanting that versus wanting that community and that connection that she would get with friends who are really close to her, who really care about her, to a relationship that she really wants to have with this boy that seems to really, really like her. It was really heartwarming that as the book progressed, you do get to see Sadie start to slowly accept this community and accept this like closeness that she gets with other people her age and other members of the paranormal community as well. And it felt really nice to see like that kind of like connections she was creating. Moving on to the characters. Again, characters had a lot of good bones to them. I feel like they were very palpable teenagers. I could really understand their like struggles with like their like projects, relationships, and romances, and just all the things that scream teenager to me. However, my biggest issue was actually with our main protagonist, Sadie. Now, Sadie's supposed to be 17 or 18. She's like on the cusp of adulthood, or like pseudo-adulthood, right? And she's been on the run for who knows how long, her entire life. So about like 17 or 18 years. Probably closer to like 15 years of her actually being able to remember any of this stuff. But she has been on the run. She doesn't really connect with people, and she's only really had her mother figure to be her sole best friend in this entire world. So I was expecting a bit more of not like an older, like super mature voice, but I was expecting a little bit more of maturity coming from Sadie. I feel like she's been going through a lot, and I feel like she would have matured just a little bit faster and just would have felt like a little too old for herself and kind of awkward in being a teenager. But she, at least to me, felt really, really young. Like, I feel like she read more like a 14 to 15-year-old, maybe 16 if we're pushing it. And I get it, there's not a lot of difference between 17 and 18 to 15 and 16, but at the same time, there should be a huge difference because she's not a human. She's a banshee who's been living her life kind of like on the lam and separate from everyone, and really just having to be a mature voice of reason in this world of hers. There were also just some moments where I felt like her mentality didn't feel very like a 17-year-old, you know? 17 by now, we're learning about like feminism, we're learning how to undo all these things, and she was making comments about how like, oh yeah, this like lacy little dress represents how like weak I actually feel, or all the pink and the bows make me feel like I am weak and too frilly and too delicate to really like do anything. And I really feel like that mentality, like I get it, that mentality is going to be here normally for teenagers because that's just how the world works. Girls are told that feminine things are not strong and they're very weak. But I feel like by the time we're reaching around like the 17-18 mark, we're starting to unlearn all those things. And at the same time, I would have liked there to have been a conversation with her and her mom telling her that like femininity and like being a girl and liking feminine things is not a weakness. I think that would have been a really strong conversation to have in the book, but we didn't really get to have that. And it was Sadie like sort of learning it on her own, sort of not learning it on her own. It was just a weird like inner turmoil battle that was going on that really I felt like never really got resolved at the end of the book. And because she read so young, it really bogged down my reading experience while I was reading the book. I just wanted there to be a little bit more from Sadie, but she read so young that I kind of was thinking that I would have much preferred it as like a younger end of like YA to even like older middle grade. Moving on to the plot. The plot was super interesting to me. I liked learning, or I liked seeing it unfold and seeing it become more and more high stakes as the book progressed. I thought that it had a lot of good things going for it, and I really couldn't like find much about the plot that I was really just unhappy with. I was really content with how the plot worked out and everything that was going on. Moving on to the pacing, I think the pacing was okay. Again, good bones on the pacing, but needed just a little bit more tweaking. There were definitely instances where I was like, I really don't need to learn about all their projects and all the little minutia of everything, or like specifics of what's going on in like events. I feel like there were a lot of moments where I was just kind of like trudging through like random events, and I could have and would have preferred it either been put into world building rather than a random scene, or just been done away with and like put the focus on like building up to the big bad plot twist and the gigantic thing that happened at the end of the book that made it seem a lot more larger, or that really raised the stakes, I should say. But again, it had good bones. I think the pacing just needed just a little bit more tweaking and needed to just take a little bit more, just need a little more work. Moving on to my overall thoughts, I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't hate this book. I didn't particularly love this book. It was just kind of like a nice middle of the road read for me. Again, the book had a lot of good bones. Like it has a solid foundation, but I feel like the execution just kind of really bogged down the reading experience for me. I think it just needed just a little touch more refinement, probably just a little bit more hands in the pot trying to figure out what was missing or what could have been adjusted. But good bones overall. I think had it been either on the younger YA spectrum, like we aged Sadie down to maybe 15 or so, or made it a middle grade, an older middle grade novel with Sadie turning 13 or 14, I think probably would have made the reading experience a little better for me, because it would have felt like it was accurate to what the character, how the character was acting, and I wouldn't have been placing like larger expectations on the character had she just been a little younger. And I think if that was the case, I probably would have given the book a solid 4, because I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But that is it for my thoughts on Paramour by Robert Alvarez. Let me know if you guys have read the book below. Yeah, let me know if you guys have read this book below, or if you want to read the book. Again, I did not hate this book. I just think for me personally, it's just a little bit of middle of the road. But until next time, hit like, subscribe, and comment, and stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.